Ranger Elias Thorne had been patrolling the giant forest for 20 years, a man whose very silhouette seemed to blend with the ancient, reddish-brown bark of the sequoias. But in all his years, the forest had never felt as heavy, as silent, as it did in the 5 months since Leo's disappearance. The initial search had been a whirlwind of activity, a frantic, futile dance against the immense silence of the park. Helicopters had roared overhead, their sounds swallowed by the canopy, and search dogs had trotted along trails, their keen noses baffled by the sheer scale of the wilderness. But Leo's trail, a clear, crisp footprint leading away from the designated path, had simply ended, just stopped, as if the earth itself had sealed its mouth. Leo Vance was only 22, a college kid on a summer break, full of an earnest, almost desperate desire to connect with something real. Elias remembered his face from the missing person posters. A square jaw, a shock of unruly brown hair, and eyes that held a certain restless curiosity. The park, Elias had learned from Leo's parents, was a spiritual pilgrimage for him. He was fascinated by the deep history of the trees, the idea that something could stand so long could witness so much. Elias, a pragmatist to his core, had found the sentiment naive, yet now, with Leo's ghost lingering in every shadowed grove, he felt its truth. The sequoias were indeed witnesses, but they were silent ones, guardians of their own secrets. Winter had come and gone since Leo's vanishing, blanketing the forest floor in a thick, insulating sheet of snow that muffled what little sound there was. Elias had spent those months in a state of quiet, brooding desperation. He checked the same remote cabins, the same outcroppings, the same forgotten caves. He was no longer looking for a living person. He was looking for closure, for an answer that would quiet the accusatory whispers in his own mind. He was the guardian of this land, and it had failed on his watch. Now, in the soft, green explosion of early spring, the forest was alive again. The snowmelt had swollen creeks into rushing torrents, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and new growth. Elias was on a solo, unsanctioned patrol, following a route far off the official maps, a route only he and a handful of other senior rangers knew existed. He was tracing a narrow, overgrown animal track that skirted a granite cliff face, feeling the familiar rhythm of his boots against the soil. He was thinking of Leo again, of the young man's final, baffling entry in the park's trail register. Going to find the heart of the forest, back by sundown. Sundown had come and gone 5 months ago, and with it all hope. It was then that he saw it, perched precariously on the highest branch of a colossal sequoia, its canopy 1,000 feet above the ground, was a nest unlike any he had ever witnessed. It was a chaotic, architectural masterpiece of sticks, twine, and salvaged debris, far too large for any known avian resident. And in its crown, catching the morning sun, was a flash of cobalt-blue. Elias froze, his breath catching in his throat. It was the same shade of blue as the waterproof notebook Leo had been carrying. The tree itself was a behemoth, its trunk a mottled tapestry of red and gray, wide enough that 3 men couldn't link hands around it. The climb was a death-defying proposition, a sheer, vertical assault on a living monument. But Elias couldn't look away from that glint of blue. His 20 years of ranger training, of cautious and methodical action, warred with a wild, almost primal need to know what lay at the top. He shed his pack, checked his climbing harness and ropes, and began his ascent. The bark was rough and unforgiving against his hands, the deep furrows of the ancient wood providing tenuous but reliable holds. The wind, which had been a gentle rustle below, became a furious, roaring presence, a force that clawed at his clothes and threatened to tear him from his purchase. Hours passed. His muscles screamed in protest, his mind numbed by the repetition of finding a hold, pulling himself up, and searching for the next. The world below became a receding green carpet, the other sequoias shrinking to matchsticks. He was in the domain of the eagles now, and he felt a profound sense of trespassing. Finally, battered and exhausted, he reached the nest. It was massive, a solid platform woven from the detritus of the forest and the sky. He carefully hauled himself onto the thickest branch supporting it, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The nest was home to 2 young eagles, their downy bodies huddled together, their sharp eyes blinking in the sunlight. They chirped at him, more curious than afraid. And there, half buried in the woven sticks and pine needles, was the cobalt-blue case. The strap, frayed and chewed, was what had been caught on a branch, holding the journal aloft all this time. With a gentle hand, Elias reached into the nest. The eagle parents were nowhere to be seen, likely hunting. He carefully retrieved the case, a sense of morbid dread and wild hope swirling in his gut. He sat on the branch, 1,000 feet above the forest floor, and opened the case. The journal inside was as pristine as the day Leo had bought it. The pages were a testament to the boy's journey, and now Elias began to read. June 12th, Day 1. The air here is so clean it almost hurts. It's hard to believe this place exists. I've never felt so small. And yet, there's a strange feeling of being watched, not in a scary way, but like the trees are listening. I'm starting to get the feeling that they're not just trees, but the last witnesses of a world that's been lost to time. Found a huge spider web stretched between 2 branches. It was woven with such precision, like a piece of cosmic geometry. So much life here. I want to try and get closer to it, not just see it. June 15th. I'm off the main trail. I know I shouldn't be, but I saw something. A stag with antlers like branches just standing there, looking at me. And then it turned and walked into a patch of what looked like a solid wall of granite. But it wasn't. There was a faint trail there, almost invisible. Felt like it was inviting me. I have to see where it leads. June 18th. The trail is getting more difficult. It's not really a trail at all, just a series of barely there impressions in the dirt and flattened moss. The forest is changing. The trees are different here. They're older, somehow. The air is still, and there's a scent I can't place. Something like ozone and old wood. I found a hollow in a fallen log that smelled like honey. Something lives there, but it wasn't a bear. I don't know what it was. June 20th. I've been following the sounds. I hear whispers in the wind, a low hum that resonates in my chest. It's not human. Feels ancient. I found a cave today, not big, but it had a strange energy. I didn't go in. I was afraid but also drawn. It's not like anything I've ever read about. There's no mention of this part of the park on any map. June 25th. I'm not lonely. That's the strangest part. I feel more connected here than I ever have in the city. The trees are my company. The animals are my friends. I left some jerky for a fox today, and it just looked at me, its eyes so full of a knowledge I couldn't understand. I think I'm learning to see with my heart, not just my eyes. This place is not a forest. It's a sanctuary. I need to find the core of it, the place where all the old stories begin. July 1st, I found a small clearing. In the center there is a stump, but it's not a stump. It is a circle of polished wood, smooth and cool to the touch. It has a spiral carved into it, almost too faint to see. When I touch the center of the spiral, I feel a vibration, a low thrumming sound. I sat there for hours just listening. The trees around the clearing are a different species. I've never seen them before. They don't look like sequoias or pines. They look older. July 10th. I'm losing track of time. It doesn't matter here. The sun rises and sets, but there is a different kind of light that pervades this place. I spend my days sketching. I drew the spiral. I drew the strange trees. I drew the fox. I drew the deer. The deer had a golden crown of moss on its head. It didn't run away. It just watched me. I feel like I'm part of something now, not just a visitor. The food is running low, but I don't feel hungry. I feel full. July 12th. I found the bear. He's massive and ancient. His fur is a deep, rich brown, and his eyes are like polished stones. He was sitting by a stream, just drinking. I didn't feel fear. I felt a connection. He didn't run away. He just looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything. The history of this forest, the stories of the people who lived here before, the rhythm of the seasons. He's not just an animal. He's a guardian. I wanted to give him something, a token of my respect. But what could a human give a god? I sat with him for a long time. It was the most profound experience of my life. The final entry was dated July 13th, the day he had vanished. It was the same entry Elias had read on the poster, but in his own hand, it felt different. The air here is different. It smells like eternity. I found a trail of sorts, not one anyone made, but one the forest seems to have laid out for me. I'm going to follow it just a little farther. I don't know what I'll find, but I think I'll know it when I see it. This place feels like home. Elias turned the page. The next pages were blank, but the final one held a small, intricate carving of a bear, made from a smooth, dark piece of river stone. It was not a sketch. It was a physical object, something tangible. It was the token he had wanted to give the god. Elias sat on the high branch for a long time, the journal in his hands, the wind roaring around him. He looked out over the vast, green expanse of the giant forest, and for the first time, he saw it not as a place to be policed, a resource to be managed, but as something ancient, something sacred. Leo hadn't been found because he hadn't wanted to be. He had followed a trail that was meant for him and him alone. He had not vanished. He had transcended. He had found his home. Elias closed the journal, carefully placing it back in the waterproof case, and looked at the two young eagles, their feathers ruffled in the wind. He was no longer a ranger on a patrol. He was a witness to a story the sequoias had guarded for 5 months. And now, it was his turn to keep the secret. He began the long, difficult descent, but the weight on his shoulders was gone. The forest still held its secrets, but now he understood them.